Hey, welcome back to season 7 of the MindShare podcast. This is where we share strategies and insights to help you work smarter, build stronger relationships, and create the success that you deserve. This show is proudly sponsored by Kits Keep in Touch Systems, your ultimate marketing and lead generation CRM. REM, a real estate magazine, Canada's trusted source for real estate news and insights. And REVEL Realty, redefining real estate with bold marketing, cutting edge training, and a culture that empowers success. Learn more about our sponsors and download your free copy of the Ultimate Marketing Bundle at mindshare101.com. And hey, while you're there, discover how our full range of services can help take your business to the next level. From one-to-one coaching for personalized growth, to the MindShare Collective group coaching for community-driven success, momentum training to build unstoppable progress, and keynote speaking to inspire and motivate your team. We are here to help you elevate your game. And while you're at it, learn more about joining the revolution to experience the bold new way that real estate is being redefined. Today's episode is number 321, and we're diving into your strategic playbook to help you build your personal brand. She's a seasoned marketing and branding strategist who specializes in helping companies and individuals create impactful strategies and powerful brands. With a solid background in digital marketing, she has built a reputation for delivering results-focused advice and practical solutions. Her approach combines industry knowledge with practical expertise, attracting a significant following among marketing professionals and business leaders. Committed to excellence, she continues to share her insights as a speaker and consultant, helping clients achieve their marketing and branding goals. Joining me on this episode of the MindShare podcast is special guest, President of Third Eye Insights, Camille Moore. Camille, welcome to the MindShare podcast.
Thank you so much. I feel like I gotta walk across stage and
I
come
was gonna
on the
say
chair.
like the little queen wave.
Hello.
How's it going?
Everything's going good. I'm getting over a cold. I feel like everybody is sick right now, so
I was
I
about to
don't
say,
expect any
seems like
sympathy.
commonplace for people right at this moment.
Yeah, but I'm on the mend. It's been like day 5, and I'm starting to feel like myself.
Well, that's a good thing. I know everybody seems to be complaining about something. It seems like it's been going around since maybe like the top of like I don't know the holiday season.
Yeah,
But whatever, just keep
yeah,
rolling. Like,
yeah. I'm
do you
rolling.
let that get in your way? Do you just stop, or like you just keep going?
No, if anything, I just am like mad at myself that like I can't do more. Like right before this, I was doing push-ups while I was waiting in the back room.
So you're not feeling well, but you're doing push-ups.
Oh yeah.
Atta girl. Good job. Good job. I like it. I like it. So listen, it's funny. I had seen a post from our friends over at the Area YPN that you were recently speaking
Yeah.
with that group over there. Wicked little, amazing group of people. I know some of the folks on the leadership team there are awesome as well. And it's always good to bring, another set of eyes and insights and ears and brains and all that other good stuff to to the landscape of like marketing, branding, and just growing your business and having more success. And I got to say that I was recently speaking with a client of mine who, and we've got a lot of clients that kind of embark on these like branding expeditions where they want to like
Yeah.
rebrand themselves and kind of says, so like, why? And it was like, what's the purpose of it? What are you trying to achieve from it? And then I was like, all right, so you've kind of like laid that out. And what's the execution? And there was a little bit of a stopping point there. And now my role as a coach, it's like, well, and I love building MindShare, right? Is like, how do we get in there and help her actually execute on this? Because she had hired a company that really didn't necessarily give her the direction she needed. But I thought to myself, I said, like when I saw the fact that you're doing branding and kind of what you're up to and the fact that you were talking to an audience that's very similar, I thought, all right, let's go. Join us. So I thank you for saying yes. I guess I should start off by asking, like, how long you been doing this branding thing for?
Jeez. Almost accidentally.
Okay.
But it's been, I incorporated Third Eye Insights in 2018, and it was kind of working before that probably for a year or two. So it's definitely been a minute.
Yeah, cool. Sorry, you were going to say.
I almost got into this accidentally because for me, it was really interesting. Like the way that my agency kind of took off is I started working with, funny enough, that's why the YPN story was so funny, because I started with lawyers. I wanted to go to law school, I thought. and I got an internship at a local law firm. I went to Western in London, and it started really working. But this is back before people were really marketing on Facebook. And I redid his logo. I was doing this comp sci course at Western, and I hated doing those steps. So I started kind of doing the marketing without knowing that it was really marketing. And then my first official client was actually a realtor. And so I started working in this space with actually real estate and law, and it ended up doing really well. I'll fast forward through through the long story, but eventually I was
Yeah,
faced
I
with
mean, I didn't mean to get all boring and stuff. I just figured we give people like a little bit of background of like who you
yeah,
are. You know what I mean?
yeah. And that was what was really interesting, is that the content that I started creating is what actually started doing really well. And it was the hardest thing for me to overcome, was like creating my own content. And then that blew up. And then I got to work with like the biggest brands in the world. I've got a successful agency. We're international. We're busy. We're thriving. So when YPN reached out, because the girls that run YPN are actually fans of my TikTok, and they're like, "We can't believe you're from Toronto. We thought you were American. Would you come speak to our realtors?" And I'm like, to me at this point, I'm pretty busy, but like, that is such a cool like way to come back to your roots, because I started in real estate. So that was a really fun day for me to do that. And that's why I love helping realtors grow their personal brands.
Well, I'll tell you something. You got a fantastic platform today to be able to do that. So I thought that there's where the fit is. But I think it's important that we explain, we break down what like quote unquote branding really means in the context of
Mhm.
like both business and personal identity. Like there's a lot of confusion out there from people around
Yeah.
what that is. Like, how would you
Yeah.
define what a brand is?
A brand to me is the multiple data points that makes up your reputation. So I like to use the analogy that a brand is like a symphony, or a brand is like a universe, or a brand is like a bouquet of flowers. A brand is made up of a bunch of different aspects that work together to create a larger collective whole. And that's what screws people up, especially that woman that you're talking about, because you can spend a lot of money on a logo, you can spend a lot of money on a website or on a photo shoot, but none of those things in isolation are a brand. It's how they work together in order to create something that is effectively your reputation. And that's what in real estate is so fascinating, because person to person, the difference in who's the best person for the job is based on your individual uniqueness. It's not on credentials alone. As soon as you're licensed to be a realtor, the only thing you have for yourself is your reputation and your point of difference. So that's why branding matters so much to realtors, because it's not like one has a license and one doesn't have a license and both can sell your home. Like that's not the equation, right? It's two people who are licensed. And with real estate, everybody knows a realtor. So how do you stand out? It's your brand, but it's all of the things that make your brand.
And I love the way you did that. I was gonna say the exact same thing. It's like so many people over the years have thought, I'm gonna get a brand. I'm gonna, design a logo and set some colors and I've got a brand. And it's like that is like one piece of the pie that doesn't make up all of it. In fact, it's
Like
probably not
this.
even the most
Yeah.
important part of it.
Yeah.
I look at it and say, what you're trying to do is build more mind share, right? You're trying to find a tiny little space on people's brains and occupy that for instant recollection so that
Yeah.
when they think about what you do, i.e., real estate, they think about you. They think about your name. They think about the service that you deliver, the experience that you created the last time they dealt with you, or what somebody else said about you. And that's
100%.
ultimately why people are going to come and work with you, right? So there are a lot of misconceptions on that. Now you just started to get into like some of the tip of the iceberg there when you're like, it's about the entirety. Are there specific, like if somebody's sitting here listening right now and going, I'm taking notes and I want to, improve or rebrand myself, whatever. I want to create a brand. What would you say make up the core elements of a strong brand? What's got to be like absolutely in place? I guess we start with that. What has to be in place, and then I've
Yeah.
got like an add on to that.
Cool. Well, I mean, you can always throw more at me. I can dance. I can dance in the brand space. But it's interesting because the the simple answer is the
Yeah,
execution, which is actually not the correct answer. The first answer is you actually have to have your brand pillars. You need to understand your purpose, your perception, your personality, I missed one, and your position. So you need to have kind of your 4 Ps first, because that's what gets people, that's what messes people up. Because if I was to say social media, the majority of our brands today exist on social media because that's the easiest place. Well, if you're paying someone to do socials, there's a very good chance that you're burning your cash because they're just doing flat graphics, and that's not effective. So me giving you the answer of socials is the place where your brand lives is a limited answer, because your socials probably aren't working because you don't have your purpose, your position, your personality, and your perception. And because you're not focusing on executing your brand off of those pillars, nothing you are doing is effective. You and I can both be creating socials, and I can be building an international brand, and you can be like looking at your bill every month and you're paying this agency and nothing is moving for you. So it's not, to do socials is not weighted equally. And that's what trips people up, is that it's a box to check. It's not something where they're investing in like the strategy of what is it that you need to make whatever you're doing effective.
So talk to me about purpose then, because that was something that, again, I had brought up to my client, and like, I wasn't fully aware of this new branding expedition that was taking place as it started. I kind of came in at the tail, like we've been working together, but I came in at the tail end and going, oh, okay, cool. So tell me, what have you done so far? What kind of deliverables have you received? Like, what's the execution look
Yeah.
like? And that's where we sort of like hit a roadblock, because I'm like, what do you mean that didn't all get outlined for you? So I started from scratch and I went, okay, what's your purpose? That's exactly where I went to. It was like a number one. I go, why did you do this? What would you say in terms of like importance of figuring that part out in order to establish whatever this rebrand looks like or new branding looks like?
Well, that's like the whole
Did that even make
catch to
sense?
this. No, it totally does. And
Okay.
that's like the whole catch to this, is like, if you are not outlining what is your purpose, what is your why do you do this? What is your position? What is the real estate that you want to own? And I'm not saying that cheekily, like, actually, it's funny. That's like my tagline for all industries. But I mean that in the sense of like, what corner of this internet do you want to be known as, like the Leslieville realtor? Do you want to be known as the Ottawa realtor? Like, what is that position you want to own? What is your personality? How do people want to, how is your outward kind of personality? And then how are people perceiving you? Which they're similar, but they're different in the sense of like, how are you presenting yourself outwardly versus how are people perceiving you inwardly? And without having those things, like, that's literally step number one. And that's where, when I give these conversations and talks, I'll be like, okay, we can talk about content pillars, we can talk about social strategy, but if every single thing you're doing isn't being weighted, it's almost a stress test. Let me take a step back. So I now work with the biggest brands. And I find it's funny because the people on the lower end, like the small guys, actually struggle with what the big guys struggle, because it's actually the same problem. It's just in like at different scales. And the issue becomes is like, there's so many opportunities, there's so many like places where you can put things, whether it's different platforms, whether it's different omni-channel application, whatever your business is dealing with, there's always tons of options. The problem becomes if you're not stress testing against those 4 brand pillars, you're not executing in a consistent way. So a really cool thing I heard once on a podcast, I forget who to credit it to. If the way to know if something has a good brand is if you could picture, like, if it had a hotel. So if I said, imagine the Nike hotel, we could all imagine it'd be probably this like black, sleek, cool hotel with this like big basketball court. If I said the Rainforest Cafe Hotel, we could all picture what the hotel would look like, because brands that operate at a high level, at a well level, they operate within consistency because they understand their 4 brand pillars. So this is a bit long-winded, and where I'm going with this is, you need to understand what your 4 Ps are, because every single thing you do in your brand, to go back to your conversation with your client, is if it's not being executed within those 4 Ps, then it's not on brand. You're either steering your brand off course, which you see a lot, or you're not creating a consistent brand over time, and nothing is working because no one understands what you represent. And where I really hammer industries is actually in medical spas. And a lot of the women listening to this will really get this, where these like top medical spa doctors are like dancing on the internet when they spend their day job injecting patients in the face. And I'm like, what, like, where is this connection? Like, if we go back to your 4Ps, like, are you wanting to be known as like a silly, humorous, like trendy TikTok dancer? If the answer is no, then what the heck are you doing? Right. And that's kind of where to your point, it's like, it's so important to have these, because if you're not stress testing everything you do, then what's the point?
So I take it that you're probably suggesting that, like, if a realtor's out there trying to build a brand because they dance on the internet, it's probably not the right sort of direction that they're going.
Well, I've got a perfect example of this. So if you guys have checked out like Brad McCallum, he's a friend of mine. He's a great realtor out in Calgary, and his style is goofier. You know, like he kind of has a bit of like a goofy kind of like skitty style to his content. That's very authentic to who he is as a person. So that really works. And he's got the numbers to show it. Where it goes off course is that when you're just hiring agencies, and they're often, you know, you hire a 21-year-old because it's exciting that they're young and they know how to use their phone, and they're telling you to do something that's not authentic. That's when it doesn't work, right? So Matt Campoli, another great realtor in the city, like he's got great content and his stuff is very funny. It's very authentic to his brand, and that's what works. Like my content is very like, it's very blunt, it's very to the point, but it's very authentic to me, so it works. And some people don't like it, but that's also what is beautiful about the internet, is that you're creating your tribe, you're creating your community. But in order to build your tribe, your community, it has to be authentic. Because imagine if I'm this bold, confident, direct person on the internet, and then you hire me and I'm indecisive and I can't make a decision. Like when there's a discrepancy of brand, it doesn't work. And the other piece to that is so much of our understanding of something is through nonverbal communication. So you're making judgment based off of my face, based off the way I look, and then further to that, which, you know, is verbal, my tone, my tenor, my word choice, how I pause, how I sound. The reality is that as humans, we are programmed to make judgment, and it's an instant, almost like non-conscious assessment when you can tell something is authentic. And that's why a lot of these celebrities are under fire, like the J-Los, the Blake Livelys, because they were built during a different time. They were built during a time where there wasn't a constant screen to get to know someone, where like these PR agencies could like create this beautiful Britney Spears and put her on a pedestal, and like no one was able to ask questions. And we live in a world where like they're not authentic. We don't really know them. And that's why the biggest people today are like Jake Pauls or Alexandra Coopers, like people who've come out of nowhere, who are, you know, effectively nobodies, because we want to authentically get to know people. So
it's like they're normal people
that like,
right?
You can love them, you can hate them, but you know them.
Okay, so should people be differentiating between sort of that personal and that business brand? Should it be like, I've got this side and I got that side? Or is that where, for what we're saying about authenticity, you got to blend that and say, this is who I am. I've said it many times before. I've said it to all of you listeners, right? I'm not everybody's cup of tea, but I don't really fucking like tea. So that's okay. You know what I mean? Like that's all right. And we, I think everybody's got to accept that. But again, back to the question there, then, is that, should there be a differentiation between personal and business, or is that something that needs to be blended?
There isn't a one size fits all answer.
Yeah.
And that's what makes the internet so beautiful. Like so much of what the questions I get from people is like, they know they need to do it, but they're so afraid about that aspect of privacy. And that's where it's like, it is what you make of it. Like for me, like I am posting every single day, and I'm really not showing a ton of my personal life, because from my perspective, like the rate in which I have eyeballs and people on my page, like they're not really showing up for like what's going on in my personal life. They're showing up for branding and business advice, and that works for me. But there's also a ton of people that I follow that I love being able to like see more into their life and into their business. But again, it comes down to authenticity. So with the collaborator feature, especially like it's where it also becomes difficult too, I'll get back to the collaborator feature, is when you're a realtor, you know, it's very different than when you have a team of like 9 people versus when you're, you know, you're a solo realtor, you know, you are your business. That's a very different strategy than someone who has a 10-person team or a 7-person team that's actively trying to grow. And that's where there's like layers to this from a complexity standpoint. So if you're listening to this and you're like, look, I don't really see a need to separate them. You know, if I'm a mom who does real estate on the side and I'm doing real estate because it allows me to support being a better mom, and a lot of your clients love that part of your brand, that's your brand. But if you're also a commercial realtor who works with typically like surgeons and doctors finding new clinics who are very focused on keeping it business and that's your life, they don't even know how many kids you have, then that's your strategy. Like, it just comes down to authenticity. Like, you don't need to post about what salad you're eating if your clients don't care about
You
that.
mean
But if
nobody
you're on
really cares about that?
unless you're like talking to all your clients about trying to lose 100 pounds right now and they're like cheering you on, like, do you get what I'm saying though? Like,
I
there's like
totally get what you're
elements
saying.
to it of like,
Yeah, no, I do.
it's what you make of it. It's what feels right to you. Like, we've got this client and he's this lawyer with all these followers and he's called the fragrance lawyer. And he every day just assesses for.
Oh, do we get a bad connection? Camille might have frozen on us. Technical difficulties. These things happen. I got to say the thumbnail is fantastic right now. Let's see what happens as Camille gets back on the line here with us. There we are. Can you hear me?
The building went out. All my lights went out.
Just really?
Yeah, the whole building went out.
Came back on quickly, so that's a good thing.
No, I did my phone. I was saying he does long-term disability. So he does long-term disability. He's got 32,000 followers on his fragrance. It's the weirdest thing. I couldn't do it for somebody else, but it's authentic to him and it works. Yeah. And that's the whole thing, is like, be the cat lawyer from Barrie. Like, if that's you, do you.
Okay, so let's dive into that. And that's a tough question to answer, Camille. Like, doing me, what does that mean? Do you see? No, like, seriously. And I throw that out there just as I know the people listening right now are saying the exact same thing. Like, well, I don't know. I mean, I have a dog, you know, or somebody would be like, you know, I like hockey, or like, you know, for me, like, I like motorcycles, you know, like, but what does that, where does that come in? Where do we find that? What is that trigger that we sit back and go, got it? Like, how would you help somebody figure that out if they're like, but I don't know. I mean, I like sports and I like people and I love my family. And again, I have a dog. I like to take walks by the river. Like, I don't know.
It's not a simple question because it can't be manufactured, right? Like, it's not like someone comes to me and I'm like, all right, so how much do you love your dog? You know, like, are we going to make you the dog loving realtor in Ottawa? Like, it's not, I'm not looking for like PR manufacturing, but I do have a good story. So we go through a discovery process and it's about an hour and a half meeting of just really like fact finding and questioning. You know, we're just kind of asking questions, and they're not complicated questions, but I've been doing it long enough to be able to like kind of know what to extract. And we were working with this personal injury lawyer out of Albuquerque, New Mexico. And he really didn't think that he had much of a story or much of a brand. Really great person, but like, to your point, really didn't feel like he had one of these moments kind of tucked away. And he thought that he had gone to law school because he enjoyed philosophy and he was kind of driven into law. And long story short, he ended up getting into like WSIB claims. So people that get kind of hurt in the workforce. Yep. And through this questioning, we ended up finding out that his father actually was he was an older gentleman. So he actually was the first guy that rallied and created union rights in New Mexico and actually advocated for all of the factory workers in New Mexico to have benefits so that when injuries occurred in the workplace, they were protected. And he didn't even make the connection that he's the lawyer advocating for workplace injuries where his father paved the way in his state. And when we he was leaving this massive law firm because he wanted to spend more time with his only son. He was a big family man. He's like, I've got one kid. I don't want his life to go by. He's like 16 or 17 years old and college is in a blink. And I want to be there for my son. Like my dad was there for me. And we're like, are you kidding me? Like, do you not see this? And he literally like instant tears, like full emotion. The whole brand was built on him really like being this advocate and champion for WSIB. And it did kind of take that discovery process. But why this is interesting
Yeah.
is his practice is the number one practice in New Mexico. Because think of it from a branding perspective. You go to 3 websites, and one website is like the son of the guy that created all of this. He's an absolute family man, like fighting every single day in the trenches for the factory workers, versus other 2 generic WSIB legal websites that look the same, that are stock
There's a
photography.
story.
Who are you choosing? It's
Yeah.
Bruce every single time. And
Right.
that's the whole thing with real estate, is like, if you look at your website, if you look at your socials, like if I just changed your handle and it looked like your 5 or 6 other competitors, like you have a brand problem. And maybe it's not being the dog owner from Ottawa, but like you have to do something to showcase your purpose, your personality, your perception, and who you are, because your clients already love you for who you are. If you're not putting it on the internet, there's an opportunity cost to being lost. And I can talk about that too afterwards. We can come back to
Yeah, no, totally. Like I'll tell you, like in our private chat, because we've got, folks in the VIP room that are watching, coaching clients that we allow in. And somebody had just put in, as he was listening to us, he said boxing. And I can tell you that he goes by and uses this sort of handle, like the friendly fighter. Right. So his whole thing's been about boxing, and and he knows it. And I've said it to him before. Like I at first didn't realize the connection there, but then realized, as getting to know him well, and he's an incredible person, and getting to work with him, and fully understanding what his passion is for keeping himself healthy, for obviously the boxing itself, and going to the gym and working out and that type of stuff. And he's leveraged that. And I mean, you will see his business card or website or branding, it'll have like him with a boxing glove on. So we started to build that in.
Cool.
Maybe, listen, I'm saying that to you. Let me turn that into a question and say, what comes to mind maybe for you that you might go, hey, has he thought about this? Has he thought about that? Or is there anything that comes to mind when I first said that?
Oh my God. I mean, all the things. Like, I'm prepared to go all 8 rounds for you. Like bidding wars don't stand a chance for me. Like, if you got a photo with a black eye, like imagine what I'm prepared to do for my clients. Like there's just so there's so many fighting euphemisms that you should be using that are interesting, that like stand out. Like you should be like analyzing the art of the fight, or the art of the ring, and comparing it to how that's like a real estate transaction for you, or how it's like the current market, or how like how conditioning is similar to like doing the proper staging. Like there's just so much content that's so different and unique that you can do for that brand. And that's all you're looking for, is like, what's your edge? Like how do you stay top of mind? Like how are you interesting? When I did for mine, I was like, I'm the internet's favorite branding director, our branding expert. And like I have had so many people, like that's like their thing when they come on, and it sticks. I mean, like it's not verifiable. Like who is going to verify that? But it's
no
one
joke. When I read it,
I
was like, who said? Like, this is exciting.
Great.
This is good. But like,
she's coming on the show.
Yeah. But something. It was like, well, here we are, right? But like reality is like, you're right. People aren't going to go and vet that. They're either going to believe
How
it, or
can
you can't. And like, but people will either believe it or dismiss it. And again, were they part of your tribe or were they not? Like, that's kind of the thing, right? Like, did you attract them into that sort of ecosystem of you or not? So look, okay. The brand is not the logo and the set of colors. We established that off the top. We both agreed upon that. We have said that it certainly comes down to that purpose, that personality, that perception. These are important keys to sort of developing like what it is. Look into who you are, figure out what it is that you like, what it is that you love, what makes you you, what makes you unique. Like I get something all the time from people who are like, oh man, this guy brings a ton of energy every time he's on a stage. And then I get people like the other day I was on a stage, like in front of like, I don't know, like 400 people or something. And, in sort of the pre-call with the person who hired me, it was like, Dave, we want you to bring that energy. We want you to do your thing, do what you do. And I'm sitting here thinking, yo, man, that's a lot of pressure. Like, what do you mean? Yet we know through the testimonials and the words that we get back from people, which is awesome. It's like, this guy always brings a ton of energy to a stage. And like, you start thinking about it when you're living in your shoes going, oh my God, I got to bring energy. They want me to like do cartwheels on the stage, but like, no, they want you to be who you are because that's how they perceive you. So just be you. So we
Yeah.
talk about the perception, the personality, we look at it and say, okay, I've kind of established that. And I'm saying me, us, anybody. I've established that. I've written it down. I got a sense of who I am. Now it's a matter of getting it out there. And again, you said top of mind. I call it building mind share. We've got to build that mind share.
Yeah.
You brought up social media earlier when you mentioned about omni-channel. I want to take a few minutes here and say, let's talk about the right channels to use when it comes
Yeah.
to doing this. It's got to obviously align with our brand. It's got to help us reach our target audience effectively. What channels would you suggest that I need to be using once I've kind of like figured out what this image looks like, this who I am, this identity? What brands, like what channels should I be using?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And again, it's really specific to who is your target? Like, who are you looking to attract?
Perfect. So we got to
Um,
define our audience.
we got to define your audience.
Totally.
I also recommend, I'll give you guys my pronoun platform breakdown. It's always a hit. People love this. But I will say that really to start, I recommend doing one well. And often social media becomes a box to check and you feel like you need to be on all places. And the reality is that each platform has its own nuance of what performs and how things do well. And um, it's simple, but it's also complicated. And it takes those hours of investing in your content to understand them. So to give, before I get into the pronoun platform breakdown, my largest platform is TikTok. So all my content is created for TikTok first. And it's really fascinating because like a video that will like really hit it on TikTok, like 2 million on TikTok, I'll put the same video on Instagram and I'm lucky if it hits 100,000. Like it
Why?
really
Why?
requires,
Why? Like, why did that happen?
because the kind of content that people are looking to consume on each platform is different, and the way that the platform rewards content is also different. So on TikTok, the hook has to be in the first 5 seconds and the rest of the video has to be great. On Instagram, it's kind of keeping people engaged for a longer period of time, so you can offset where the hook is. Both content pieces need a hook, and it's also, there's slightly different styles of content. So on Instagram, so the pronoun platform breakdown also kind of explains that a bit more, and I can get into that. But the takeaway for this is do one platform really well. And you can repurpose content on different platform. However, don't expect it to succeed. Just really double down on doing one well. Because as we go through this conversation between you and I, David, like there's pressure to performing on, and there's is a high ask. Like creating consistent, well done content is a big ask, and you're going to feel overwhelmed. And the path to creating content is not linear, and that's what really screws people up. Is they listen to like a Gary Vee and they're like, holy shit, I got to post 7 times a day. Well, I can't do them. I'm going to post nothing. And that doesn't work either. So it's about consistency. So the pronoun platform breakdown, Facebook is all about we. So Facebook is where you post like milestone moments and what's happening in your life. So like bigger picture things. It's where you tend to keep like family and friends updated on what's going on. Facebook also tends to skew older and it tends to skew more rural. So if you're like in secondary markets, Facebook is a very strong platform for like 45 plus. It's starting to actually have a massive renaissance with a larger age demographic. In fact, I did 2 calls this week with massive public companies who you would know. In the last 3 months, Facebook has outperformed in the past 4 years. So Facebook is really having a bounce back, and there's a lot of real estate traction on Facebook. The next is Instagram, and Instagram is all about me. So this is the most intimate platform of all the platforms where you can get to know influencers, celebrities or individuals. This one's had the biggest groundswell because this is where a lot of grandparents and parents moved on to, because as everyone knows, that's where the younger audience was for a large chunk of time. Instagram is multimedia, but it really hyper focuses on having mixed medium. So doing both photos and videos. And Instagram, Meta, who owns Facebook and Instagram, is doing a lot to really compete with this, like the TikTok kind of looming ban. So right now, Instagram and Facebook is really outperforming TikTok. LinkedIn is all about us. So this is like B2B. LinkedIn is a very untapped platform for realtors. This is a platform that's actually not a social media platform. It's a business platform. And the reason why it's different is how the business monetizes. So LinkedIn's main monetization model is actually not ads, which is not to say for YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. It's actually job postings. So LinkedIn has the highest time swell during the day from 9 to 5 because professionals are checking it during the day. So if you're looking for like a more professional audience to focus your real estate on, LinkedIn's actually a really untapped market. What does well though in LinkedIn is storytelling. So not videos, but more storytelling focused captioning, where you're asking people to really engage with you and you're kind of generating value from them.
Hold on, let me ask you a question on that.
TikTok
Forgive
is
me.
all about you.
Okay, sorry to
Yeah.
cut you off there. I just staying on the LinkedIn
Yeah.
on the platform for a moment. We just had a question in the VIP room asking
Yeah.
about LinkedIn. It's funny you jumped right into that, and it was like, what kind of content? So as you just said, sorry, it wasn't about the video, but what? It's about a photo and then like a caption that goes
Yeah.
with that. And is that a
Yeah.
descriptive photo of
Yes.
something you were doing in a day? Is that is
It
that again?
can
I'll just
be.
come back to the silly. I'm walking my dog, or is this me handing the keys over to a new homeowner? What is that?
It's more giving a story. So you could post a photo of a house you just sold, and the
Yep.
angle would be like, this is a house that my client didn't believe that I'd be able to get over asking for. And be like, they're going through a divorce. They lacked confidence in me in the number that I had put forward, but they decided to give me a shot, and it wasn't easy. And these are the three things that I learned from this transaction. And here is kind of where it ended. So opposed to it, like it's really kind of engaging in like storytelling and reflection from a professional standpoint. So the goal is, if you you're handing over keys, the way that you would communicate that is, this moment was really important for me. This is clients of mine who are in their early 30s. This was their first home. They've saved up every dollar. This market is very difficult to buy homes in, and I'm constantly asking myself, when are we going to take more control over the Ontario housing market? I've had 5 clients in the past year that have actually been able to afford properties on their own. And I'm really stuck on what the future of real estate in Ontario, like maybe one that would make you more like a thought
Yep.
leader, but instead of it just being like, just sold, here's another, set of
Right.
keys I'm handing over,
Totally.
you're professionally reflecting, and that shit goes like the wildfire. Another thing
Love
with
that.
LinkedIn that's really cool is LinkedIn's the only platform that does the viral loop feature. So basically what that means is, if David comments on my post is shared to every single one of David's followers' timelines. And if one of David's followers also comments on my post, my post now goes on that person's timeline, and it will
There
go
you go.
perpetually
Cool.
forever as long as people are commenting. So what I said, video content doesn't perform. If you guys follow me on LinkedIn, you will see that I recycle a lot of TikTok content. And the only reason being is LinkedIn is actually not a strong platform for me. But what happens for me, which is interesting, is because I get hired by a lot of big brands, a lot of the big brands' internal employees will add me on LinkedIn, and that gets me in the running for branding contracts later, like as they come up. So for me, for my strategy, for my business, it's actually a good place for me to stay top of mind for those people. But because I run an agency and we have data metrics, video actually doesn't perform better for
Okay.
realtors, for lawyers, for doctors. So it's photo-based
But it
content
doesn't
with
perform better
copy.
on LinkedIn for those
On
those
LinkedIn
people.
only
Got you.
LinkedIn.
Yep.
Every other platform is video first.
Okay.
But LinkedIn is actually that image with text. But because a lot of my LinkedIn connections are fans from TikTok, I repurpose that content, and that strategy works for me.
Cool. Okay, sorry, I cut you off there. I wanted to touch on that because I loved
Yeah.
what you're saying about LinkedIn. We had that question. You started getting into TikTok.
Yeah, so TikTok is all about you. And the reason why I use is you is meaning the user is actually coming on to consume content created by creators. So TikTok's a really weird platform because the average user has never and will never post any content on TikTok. So it's almost like YouTube in that you go on to consume other people's content. And for that reason, TikTok has got the best algorithm. So it's actually quite scary in how it sorts. Now, the algorithm has changed since it was resurrected a week or so ago, and view count is like significantly down. However, I do suspect that that's going to bounce back because this happens every once in a while with the algorithm, period. But
Yeah.
TikTok is an interesting one because where I find TikTok, there's two sides to this. One, TikTok is best for great content. So what's cool about TikTok is like you can just like second post can be a banger and it can go viral. Instagram makes you work very hard to go viral.
Yeah.
The only downside is that TikTok is focused on disseminating exceptional content. So you can have 100,000 views, but they're not 100,000 local views. And that's kind of somewhat problematic to someone that is selling in a hyper local area. Where TikTok is blown up for real estate, and I've got lots of clients and many friends who have benefited from this, is like out of town buyers that like all the platforms are using social listening. So they'll know if you're like thinking about moving to Hamilton, and they'll might show you like Hamilton videos of like what you can get in Hamilton for 400, 500,000. You can totally build a practice off of this. My only asterisk to this is that this is a great strategy for someone that's very good with technology that can do this themselves, that's starting out. If you're someone that has a few years, you have some clients under your belt, and you can't just go to like free showings like 3 or 4 times per week, it's harder to grow that strategy. So I would hyper recommend doubling down on Facebook and Instagram, because that's a more it's a better universe to build a brand. And I will get into that because you can kind of do this selling as well as the personality pieces, as well as the education pieces. But for context, like on TikTok, every single video of mine is like, here's what you need to know about socials. This is what you need to know about this. It's like,
Right.
it's just very much like about you, like value, 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 value. Whereas Instagram is more of that me concept where like, you can actually better get to know me. And what's interesting is my Instagram following is significantly less, but those are the loyalists. Those are the people that really love my content, but want to get to know me better and follow me on another platform. So that's kind of the difference between both.
I love that you said that, right? It's like, it's not, listen to everybody tuned in, right? It's not that you couldn't go to her TikTok and her Instagram and sort of see the differences there between followers or whatever it is. But I do, I need to pose the question, because as we're talking on the topic of social media, and for today, I'm going to keep steering us back to the branding thing. And I love all the insights you shared about social, but I know I feel like I could pick your brain for 24 hours on social media.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's the thing. So it's like, but what I also want to emphasize for everybody, right, is that it's more than just social media.
Yeah.
Right now, just before I switch from that, I would say to you, like, do you need to be a social media superstar to make an impact with your brand? Like, do you have to be the most popular realtor out there? And then like, in saying that, I'm going to say it in the same question. Like, should I be posing in front of a house that's not mine, like that big mansion, and be like, yeah, look at me, or put on that suit that I wouldn't normally wear, or, show you my watch that's like I just borrowed for a second so I could take a picture with it so I could pretend I was looking at my watch? Like, all these sort of like posturing photos and kind of like personalities that aren't necessarily who these people are. I think you've already touched on that part, saying if that ain't authentically you don't need to be that person. Right. But then it's like, what about this idea about being a superstar? Because look, perception's reality. Okay.
Yeah.
If I had, and listen, I love my tats, so I have ink, but like if I had a big tattoo across my forehead, you might think, does this guy make the best decisions? Now, I'm not judging Jelly Roll. I think he's got great music, or like anybody else, they may have tattoos on their face, but like some people might look at that and say, whoa, what are you doing? Perception's reality. People do judge a book by its cover. So coming back to followers and kind of that following on social media, for anybody that's looking, going, oh my God, she's got more followers than I do. I'm not popular enough. I've got to get there. What would you say to them about that mindset?
Okay. Well, first and foremost,
that was a lot.
I mean, yeah, that was a lot. And I actually want to break down a few things that you said. But to the last point, like we're not in the same arena, right? Like I'm an international hireable expert. Like later today, I've got calls in Japan, Australia, and Zimbabwe. Like my business is literally all over the world. Your business is hyper local. The numbers for the two of us are not equal. I have to generate 100,000 or 1 million views in order. So actually, I'm going to take a step back. So for my business, I actually create content in a funnel. So the videos that do 1 million or 2 million are the ones where like I'm attacking Apple, I'm attacking Lululemon, I'm attacking the ones or that everybody and anybody has an opinion on. And those are the top of the funnel videos. Those videos don't generate me business. Those videos are just purely entertaining, where people aren't even talking to me. They're fighting with each other. In fact, I did one on Taylor Swift, and that one I've got like 5,000 of like, you hateful bee. But so those are like top of funnel content. The content for me that performs is actually the content that performs by way of like conversion and actually like business cash in the bank, is under 100,000. In fact, it's typically under 25,000, because when you actually go smaller and smaller, of the decision makers within a business that are struggling with marketing and branding decisions is just less relevant to less people. So for me, I'm in a different game. I need numbers to start the funnel, and then I move down, and those videos perform less, but do better for me. So to answer to the next question, if you're a realtor in Ottawa, well, what's the population of Ottawa? 2 million, 3 million? Okay, well, within that, you're not ever going to get 3 million views on a video. If you get 10%, that's viral in Ottawa. So you have to kind of shift your mindset to like, what is the benchmark for success for what you're doing and what you're achieving? And you're a service provider in a local area. You can't sell a house in Florida. So big numbers don't matter. You brought up another point, though, where you talked about the kind of like, do you have to be an expert on social media to really kill it? And
not necessarily expert, but it's almost like that being somebody necessarily that you're not, being the social media superstar in terms of the followers. Again, it was more based on kind of that perception around like numbers.
Yeah. Well, okay. So numbers, no. And like numbers actually don't matter. In fact, a video that I'm to be doing recently, I really had an aha moment lately, because so much of our success metrics is based purely on followers. But think about like, how many people are you really following per week? Like max 3, max 4. Like we don't follow people. We just consume content, or like maybe, maybe it's your friends, maybe you go to the explore page, but like, how often are you clicking follow? Like how hard I have to work to gain followers per day is just, it's like, that's not the benchmark. And that's what's actually really interesting, is you can see how many followers I have on paper, but if you accumulate the amount of watch time and the amount of views, the amount of people that know my brand is exponentially bigger. Because especially on TikTok, like there's so many people that just keep coming up my timeline. I love their content, but I don't click follow because I don't need to. TikTok just keeps sending me their video. So followers is not the baseline. Really, your baseline is engagement. And if your content is not generating engagement, which is like likes, comments, saves, DMs, your content isn't working. And that's the only thing you should really care about, is if people are not feeling compelled to say something, to save it, or to send it to somebody else, it's actually not working. And I've got an interesting actually story on this. So a few months back, when TikTok had launched Notes, we had actually tried creating some like swipe throughs, because all the TikTok creators were like, oh my gosh, they're going to be pushing your page if we use this new feature. They want to reward people that are doing it. And we did it, and it really didn't perform. And I was like, you know what? Let me just try it on Instagram. Let me just see if this works. And it was like effectively like photos of me with like some text on top. And I'm not particularly vain, but like it's harder for me to find stock photography. So at least it's like real photos like of me that are for the swipe through. And it didn't actually really generate like a lot of comments, or it didn't really generate like a ton of likes. And I was like kind of a bit like, okay, well, I guess that was dumb, but like, I guess I learned. And at the end of the month, I checked on like my profile analytics, and the top post that performed for DMs and saves was that post. And it actually resulted in the greatest number of followers and impressions for that month, because it was me giving people value, but they didn't feel the need to comment on it. So I still got really strong engagement metrics, but it wasn't comments alone. And the reason why I give the story is had I just gone off of like the egoic of my gut of like, I didn't get enough people telling me they liked this, I wouldn't have continued actually down a content pillar that actually grows more people that are looking for what I actually want to give them, which is just purely value. And so engagement takes different forms. And especially if you're a realtor and you do a series of like the 20 places to eat in Ottawa or the 20 places to eat in Barrie, you might not get a lot of comments, but you might get a ton of saves. And that is really, really important for your algorithm, is just understanding that engagement isn't just comments or isn't just likes. It's also DMs, it's also saves. So just think about content that would generate engagement, and then you're, as well as within your 4Ps, and then you're off to a winning start.
Love that. Love that. Great. Seriously, awesome insights there. I think it shared a ton, and it probably, gives a good breath of fresh air for a lot of people. Now, as we were talking about, again, omni-channel, we refer to obviously sometimes cross-channel. What about, email, frequency of email, leveraging email to expand on that brand, like stepping out of the social media realm, looking at the different ways to communicate out there. We know there's the in-person, there's the phones, there's the emails, there's the paper, socials, online, text. Looking at email for a moment.
Yeah.
Frequency, sharing. What's your take on that as like sort of a tool as part of this entire brand expedition?
I find most realtors actually don't do email, right? Like it's really a box to check. Like if you're not focused on providing value and genuinely building a tribe, you're wasting your time. Doing just like market updates or like doing a roundup of like properties in the area, like it's just not quite enough. Like and because it's not special, like we're in an attention economy, so everything that you do has to be hyper focused on. If you get someone's attention, that is like hitting the jackpot. How do you keep it? What are you doing with that attention you got in order to stay top of mind? And there isn't enough strategy and thought that goes into it. Like that's why we celebrate a handful of realtors that have actually done quite a lot with their brand, is because they're hyper strategic. And I think in real estate, it becomes super overwhelming where you feel like you got to be on Instagram and you got to have email and you got to have your CRM and you got to do, and if you're not doing them strategically, you're just like moving paper across your table and like nothing is effective. And then you feel like you're too busy and you're constantly drowning and you're not focusing on what matters. Like I would say if you have a limited amount of time, do a video-based newsletter. Like get on video, talk about your key points, talk about things you're seeing, trends you're thinking, things to be aware of, and then think about how to repurpose that into content so that you're killing two birds with one stone. But like just going to your same template, dropping in stuff from the MLS, taking like stats that come in from your brokerage, like nobody cares, and you have to actually make people care. So think about a strategy. Think about even like with Mercon, our friend that's in boxing, like thinking about 10 great stretches for mobility that you've learned, in the ring for people that sit at their desk. I know like those like wrestler push-ups are so good for shoulder mobility, and like think about how much more value, how interesting that is if I open it. And then there's like some stuff that you've done in your business below. I'm actually going to open that. Like you're giving me value.
Yeah. I like that. No, and value is huge, right? Like no matter what channel it is, value is absolutely important. So then if we look at like, okay, I've gone out and I've, taken new photos and I've kind of designed my purpose and I want to be more involved with social, but I've gone through and I've designed the logo and picked colors. And like I've kind of gone through those initial steps when it comes to the actual brand launch. And again, I realize that this is a very lengthy answer. It can be, but just to sort of summarize this, if somebody says, okay, I've got this stuff ready, I've done the content creation from the video, I've done the photos, I've got the look and the feel, like I'm ready to launch. What does launch day look like? What should launch day look like?
I mean,
launch day doesn't, a short form on that?
Well, launch day doesn't matter if you don't have ongoing content. Like it's just about consistency and execution. Yep. Like I don't care how nice your headshots are. Like if you're not supported by posting like 3 banger videos per week, like who cares about your headshots? Like that's like we live in a world where it's like it's sadly disposable. Like you have to show up all the time and like be constantly telling people why you're the best person for the job. Like every day I post a video. It's taken me time to get here. It didn't happen overnight. For sure, and totally. It's like there is a learning curve to it, but the content I create today is for business for tomorrow. Like I constantly have people reaching out and they're like, I'm not even interviewing anybody else. You're the only person I want to work with. I feel so connected to your message. And like, I can't ask them like, what video was it? Like what post was it? Because it goes back to that like ethereal question of like, it's your brand. It's all the things. So your photos matter, your website matters, your brand launch matters, but like that one post of you like showing your why and your new logo, if it's not upheld with consistent content that shows why you're the best, it's a waste. And you don't need to spend a crazy amount of money. Like you can literally do a video a day like this on your phone, in-app platform. You don't even have to edit it. CapCut is also the easiest thing.
Okay, cool. So then what if I said to you, and just like throwing it out there, I don't really want to do a video a day. I don't think it's me. It doesn't feel authentic. I'd rather kind of do one a week. Is that okay? Or is that not enough?
Totally okay. And
cool.
No, and that's where my big thing is. If I need every time that you're going to show up, you need to have a strategy. You need to not be focused on being perfect, and you have to hit send. Like you have to get it out. So whatever that means for you, if that's once per week, if that's twice per week, if that's 3 times per week, whatever that is for you and where you're at is fine, but it has to be good. And you have to, cool. But good isn't perfect. And even in my story, like when I
was about to say that to you, how do you define that? Right? Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's when I started creating content, I paid for a video team. They showed up once a month, or maybe it was twice a month. And it was like a 3-hour day. And I had my videos prepared and I did them, and they went back and edited them. And we put them out 3 times per week. And that did really well until I got that FU confidence when like these big brands started reaching out. And then I slowly have started to get to like, now my brain is like, I now shoot once a week. I've got multiple editors. Like we're at a different point in it now because I have the ROI. I've got the proof of concept, but you can start with doing 1 grade a week. But the problem is that most people don't hit send because they want to be perfect. Like it's not going to be perfect in the beginning. Like there's no such thing. Like it's a new skill. And that's why most people don't create content, is because it sucks and they don't want to work through the suck. But if you don't work through the suck, you can't
never get to the other side.
You never get on the other side.
Okay, so here, how do I measure that? Like outside of me just kind of go like, I'm more comfortable putting the video out there. If I've put my brand out there and I am comfortable putting content out there, I've gotten more comfortable putting the videos and putting myself out there, I am consistent. How would you suggest, what tips do you give to everybody to kind of go back, review, and like adjust that brand strategy so that they can like continue to remain relevant?
Yeah. Okay. So good question, and also tough to answer from like a blueprint perspective, because ROI and branding is like a conversation I don't have anymore, because branding is not a short-term return on investment. Right. It's a long-term necessary play. And my kind of story for this is, I went to, I did like a trip to Korea because I work with a lot of beauty brands, and I wanted to kind of get ahead on.
I saw you like walking across that building or something.
Yeah. But that was, I've gone back actually now multiple times. So I really wanted to get into Korean beauty. And so I did this trip, and it was kind of a risk. And I ended up getting not only an insane amount of clients, but I also got a full feature in Cosmo Group.
Nice.
But it didn't come until 8 months later. And they reached out and they're like, oh my gosh, we're huge fans. We love your Korean content. We're going to fly you out to us in the Netherlands. We want to do a full feature. And when I talk about ROI, like, what is that worth? Like, yes, I generated business. Like, yes, I'm growing and I'm learning. But when you look back on your life and you get these opportunities where YPN is reaching out, being like, we love your content. Like, we didn't even think you were from here. Like, we'd love to have you. Like, how can you place a dollar value on that? And so many realtors are like, it's 28 days into the month. Like, where is my house sale? And that's when you think like that, you're losing. Because it's about like a long-term consistent investment in yourself. Like it's intangible what you learn from having a coach just meeting you and helping you make different decisions and like navigating that course in a way that, so it's not about ROI. And even when it comes to benchmarking success, like it takes 6 months to really start to generate that, like the business coming in. It's about being consistent. Like if you show up for 2 weeks and you disappear, like what is the likelihood in those 2 weeks someone's decided to sell a house and doesn't have a realtor and they think about calling you? Like very slim, right? Mm-hmm. And that's where it's like, I can tell you if you're not getting comments, engagements, or likes, okay, well, change your strategy. But really what it comes down to is like, I'm at this, it's not like you're going to try this for 6 months. Like, this is a new reality. Like, your consult happens before the consult. And another thing I say all the time is, think about when you get a recommendation to go to a restaurant, or like, even for women, like, you want to get your hair done and you ask your girlfriend and she gives you a recommendation. Like, gone are the days where like they say that the phone number out loud and you type it in and you call it. Like, the next thing you do is you digitally verify it. Like, you search it up on your phone. And if your
Totally.
socials suck, or if they're non-existent, you're losing business.
Yep.
You're like, and like, even the people listening to this, like, how many of you were like, who is this chick? I'm gonna go search her up. And you're like, okay, she's the real deal. Or like, I expected more. Like, it's all about that digital verification that you go through as you're meeting people in real life. So it's, the ROI is like, you can't afford to not do it, because like, this is how we buy. And it's not, you're not going to find it in a quarter. And if you do, awesome, you're lucky. Like, it's how we buy. It works. It's just, it's not like a 14-day, you're going to get your check back.
No, so listen, that's a wicked point right there. It's so important to state, because again, everybody's always looking for immediate return, immediate result from the action that they take in a day. And I mean, that's one of our big messages to all of our audience and our coaching clients. It's like, you're looking for like immediate success tomorrow, or like today when you do it, like that, it's going to return something to you today. It doesn't work that way. And to what you said about branding, like specifically, even, it's hard to coin an ROI on that. Right. But what you do know is that by working through it and building it out and making mistakes and then failing forward and constantly trying again and doing something else, something's going to click. And then all of a sudden you're going to start to see the success that you wanted. And you, like you said, like, I really don't know exactly what it was, but I know for myself that we've been constantly a work in progress and we've been constantly improving. And I guess, yeah, where I am today is a lot further ahead than when I was yesterday. And right there, that's winning, right?
Yeah, like, how do you put a dollar on that? Is that worth
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
So okay, listen, we have to do this again because there's so much more I can tell you. You just like to talk about this shit, and I love it. To wrap up, okay, and I got like a couple brief questions for you, but I just 2 to 3 points for everybody right now that you can give to them, that they could like come away as they tune this out, like they turn off the podcast today and they kind of go, whew, first I want to follow her. I want to like learn more from her. And I guess in sort of conjunction with that, 2 or 3 points that they could use to sort of establish or reestablish or measure what they're doing from their brand perspective right now.
Yeah. Number one is stop being ignorant of social media. Like, you can't keep pushing
Stop
it
you
down.
what?
Like, ignorant about social
Okay.
media.
Yeah.
Like, stop trying to like push it down, expecting it to go away. Like, you're not too old. Like, all of the like cute jokes that you're using, it's like you're actually pushing yourself further from staying relevant for the next decade. Go for it.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, you saw. I was going to say so. It's funny. I had a conversation with somebody about AI last year, and we were having this whole thing. And he said to me, he said, "Stop." He goes, "If they had introduced the wheel to you way back when they introduced the wheel, and you said no, where would you be today?" And I was like, bombs dropped. That's a great point. So to what you're saying with social media, it's very similar to that.
It's
like that.
Social media is like
questions and you're cutting
2 iterations before AI. I don't know. Sorry, am I back now?
Yeah, sort of like, yeah, visual kind of there, sort of slow.
Weird.
It's like you're a transformer. We're almost there.
Everybody. How about now? I think it's good.
Yeah, there we go.
Ooh. Okay. Sorry, I was saying, no, I feel like AI is like, no, you can hear me. Yes.
Yeah,
it should be good.
Go.
Good?
Yeah.
Okay. I was saying AI is like, so I would say social media is the wheel and AI is like the horse and buggy. You know what I mean? Like, not adopting social media is like you're the extra dumb idiot in the village, because like we're moving past the horse and buggy, like it's moving so fast. I say this, and sorry for cutting out, I don't know what's going on in the building, but we create these excuses for ourselves that it's like always tomorrow, you know, like tomorrow
Yeah.
I'll get it. You know, I know my kids can do it. I know it's easy enough. And like the reality is like it's actually so freaking easy. Like spend 15 minutes, pull up a YouTube video, do it 2 or 3 times, and it really hasn't been easier than it is right now. It's just there's a learning curve like everything. And I was saying this in my book, like because you learned like typing in school, you know, like you feel like you're equipped to like type because you were learning this in school and it evolved and like people were out in their lives. They just feel that they didn't get that teaching or that moment to really be able to like learn these skills. And this is literally the difference of your business. I want you to know it first, even if you're going to pay people, because you're more empowered as a buyer if you're able to tell the person working for you what works for your brand. I have 5 editors and a social media coordinator that works in my account. And if I'm not involved, it's not my brand. So you have to have a say. Like, you have to be involved in your brand in order to well.
I think our connection is getting weak. It's like, hey, you guys have been talking a lot. I don't know. You sound like we
No,
definitely bad
why?
internet.
It's better
But I
now?
will say this as that's working
Ah!
through, to those of you in the VIP room, and I can see you, and I'm talking to you. We have had conversations about your social media. Get it done. Stop procrastinating. You hear it from me. You're now hearing from Camille. It's important. Make time for it. It's not the be all and end all, though. That's one thing we know. There are other things that need to happen. It is a people business. It's important. It could be connecting with people, you know, and that's this is all just part of the game towards, you know, success, right?
Yeah, sorry about that.
There we go. I think you're back. Your video's not back,
Heartbreaking.
but your sound is kind of back.
I don't know why, but it's so annoying.
You
Me
know what?
talking about the future of AI and social media, and my Wi-Fi is
I know, and
telling me.
it's like, shh, tell her not to keep going. But I do have a final question for you. You know, you do all
Yes.
this great stuff. You've built yourself a fantastic brand. Obviously, it's still a work in progress, like anybody else that's out there that's working on things. The question I've got for you is like after you sort of complete a day and you go through everything that you're doing in a day, you know, you kind of finish up, close the computer, close the phone. How do you know it's been a successful day for you?
Mm. You know, it's interesting what we do for my company call every day. We call it our frog. And it came from a book of like swallow your frog. I forget what the book is. And there's one thing every day that I need to do in order to be successful because like I can run around and like do a bunch of emails and do a bunch of calls and like waste a bunch of time and like feel like I'm busy. But there's one thing that I have to do every day. And for me, actually, I don't take any meetings before noon and I write. Or I do some form of deep work, whether it's on my book, on creating content, or kind of an idea I want to manifest. And I do that from about 6 a.m. till noon. So the first 6 hours of my day is actually deep work on my craft. And then from noon until 6 is actually when I take client meetings or I'll do blocking. So I actually, all my days are successful because I'm very focused on time blocking in my calendar. And I highly recommend that for professionals, especially those who need structure because they own their own business. So using different color coding for blocking because otherwise, you can just take a bunch of meetings and do a bunch of text and feel super busy, but not actually get anything done. And I have too much going on in too many different time zones that like it's militant how I execute my calendar because I need to have control over something. And if I can have control over my time, then I am winning.
I love that answer. And I know everybody tuned in is like, oh, Dave paid her for that one.
He
Time
didn't.
blocking. I'm telling you right now, and thank you for verifying that. No, seriously, we really focus on three concepts here with MindShare. One's called mapping, one's called MindShare, and one's called mindset. And
Cool.
you've really touched on all three of those today. Mindset in terms of what you do as your morning routine. Mindshare has been a big part of the branding and marketing conversation. And then mapping, very much so, as you just wrap that up. We're very big on mapping out what it is that you ultimately want and how you're going to get there. And a big part of that is the time block and the color coding.
Yeah, you have
So
to.
it's a strategy that people find incredibly difficult to execute on. Realities are it is the game changer. That is the game changer.
The,
There's only so many hours in a day.
and I'll explain why too quickly. So annoyed. My building has no power. Like nothing is plugging in. It's so frustrating.
We're good. You're
And I'm
good
right
right now,
downtown
though. You're
Toronto. I
good
know,
right
I'm like,
now.
what? Like, come on. But I watched the Bill Gates documentary on
Yep.
Netflix. This was years
Inside Bill's
ago.
brain.
Yeah, and
Yep.
it was like a life-changing moment when Bill is like, I have all the money in the world. The only thing I can't buy more of is time.
Yep.
And he's like, the only thing, he goes like, I leave meetings on time. I show up to meetings on time. The only thing I protect is my time. And
Mhm.
it was such a great thing to learn early because clients will love to spend your time. But like you have to be in control of your time because time is the only thing that you have to be in control over. And I'm actually like quite strict about it, but that shift when I look at other business owners, like I you have the same amount of days, same amount of the hours in the day as Beyonce. It's one of my
You
favorite
got
lines.
it.
So like, how do you maximize your time to be more effective if we all have the same hours in the day? It's time blocking.
You know what, we're ending right there because you just nailed exactly so much of what we talk about, like from our stage presentations, our trainings. Now, I mean, obviously it goes a hell of a lot deeper because you got to teach how. How do you get there, and what keeps you motivated on it? And how are you going to stick with it? I will say that I remember watching that documentary, and one of the big things that I remember was how many books he reads, and in how short a period of time he can get through that. And
Yeah.
that was one of the emphasis of like feed your brain, right? Really be intent, focus on what you're doing for you, and the things that you want in the end will inevitably, appear in some way, shape, or form. It's not going to come without the hard work, the trials and tribulations, but like, yeah, it's no, great point. Love that you did that, Camille. This has been awesome. This has been super awesome. You've got a ton of information, a wealth of knowledge around the idea of branding. I love what you said about time block. I just like, yeah, I think I said that 7 times in the past 30 seconds. But seriously speaking, this has been a fantastic episode. We learned a ton, and we need to do this again for sure.
I love that. And I'll make sure that I got better Wi-Fi. Thank you everyone for sticking through
Yeah,
this.
you're awesome. Thanks, Camille. You've been listening to the MindShare podcast, whether it's on one of your favorite podcast platforms or directly from my website, mindshare101.com. While you're there, explore how our full range of services from one-to-one coaching, the MindShare Collective group coaching, momentum training, and keynote speaking can take your business to the next level. Don't forget to download your free copy of the Ultimate Marketing Bundle so you can build more mindshare and earn more market share, as well as learn more about joining the revolution. For any inquiries, just get in touch with us today. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to please leave a review. We've made this super simple, as you know, www.ratethispodcast.com/mindshare101. Really easy. If you're on iPhone, it'll take you directly to Apple. If you're on Android, it'll take you to Spotify. So it's super, super simple. Again, that's ratethispodcast.com/mindshare101. If we haven't yet, connect with me on Facebook and TikTok at mindshare101. And on Instagram at David Greenspan 101. Of course, just before we sign off, I want to thank Kits Keep in Touch Systems, REM Magazine, and Revel Realty for their continued support as a sponsor of the show. This has been another episode of the MindShare podcast. Thank you for tuning in.